Salonun yerleşmesini bekliyorum.
I am waiting for the hall, the auditorium to settle down until everyone's seated.
Sayın
Distinguished member of the Environment Commission, member of the Parliament, Nevzat Ceylan, General Director of Renewable Energy, Dr. Oğuzcan, distinguished participants. This is the second day of our Congress, TWC Congress, and yesterday we had enjoyable sessions. We learned a lot, we talked about a lot, we had a lot to discuss. Before the Congress, during the day, what happened? Let's remember what happened. There's a brief presentation that we prepared. Let's remember what happened yesterday.
İlkini 2012 yılında gerçekleştirdiğimiz Türkiye Rüzgar Enerjisi Kongresi'nin bu yıl 5.'sini düzenliyoruz. Ve şunu ifade etmek istiyorum ki gerek şahsım, gerek yönetim kurulu üyesi arkadaşlarım, gerekse bizi destekleyen tüm kamu kuruluşları, sektör paydaşları bu etkinliğin her yıl daha ileriye götürülmesi için mutlaka bir katkı sağlıyorlar. Bunu da dolup taşan salonlarımızdan görüyorsunuz.
Artık ülkemizin her yerine rüzgar türbini diken özel şirketlerimiz yorulmadan yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarımızdan enerji üretmektedir.
İnovasyon ve teknoloji büyük bir hızla, yani baş döndürücü hızla artıyor. Yetişemiyoruz. Bunu aslında hem piyasaya hem de müşterilere çok olumlu yansımaları var.
Sektörle paylaşıyoruz. Ortak aklı keşfetmeye çalışıyoruz. Birlikte yürümeye çalışıyoruz ve birlikte yürümeyi beceriyoruz. O yüzden de sonuç alıyoruz.
Stay still until the
Evet, dün böyle geçti. Büyük bir alkış alalım.
That was yesterday. Let's applause stronger. Thank you. I would now like to invite the speakers to make the opening speeches. Mr. Nevzat Ceylan, first speaker, Mr. Nevzat Ceylan with your cheering. A member of the parliament from the AK party. Distinguished participants of the Turkish Wind Energy Congress, General Director, I'd like to thank the organizers for this beautiful event, focusing on such a topic that's so important for our country, and I am so happy for having the chance to witness all the speeches, the addresses and everything. And I'm really excited about it. Dear guests, we live in such a beautiful part of the world. We are lucky because this part of the world is endowed with natural beauties, which includes wind, hence the high potential for wind energy in our Turkey. Our country, Turkey, is a bridge between three continents, a critical strategic location. We have three surrounded by three seas. We have a lot of endemic plants, and it's maybe more than all countries of Europe combined. We always compare and contrast ourselves with Europe, and we want to show our advantages, the advantages that we have. We have about 450 bird species. That's a high number. We have two migration routes for birds, 80,000 species of animals, mostly insects, and the number of species in Europe is 60,000. We have 8,300 kilometer coastline. We have 4 different marine ecosystems. We have our steppes, plateaus, our forests. These are the beauties that we have, and these are the beauties that we enjoy. Yet another beautiful thing, we have higher grounds. The average altitude in Europe is around 300, where we can reach us up to 2 kilometers, which makes us even more advantageous in terms of wind energy. So we are a high country. That gives us an upper hand in terms of wind. We are carrying out considerable work regarding these issues, and you are very well aware of what's going on in terms of wind and solar and other renewable energies. We are trying to complement the beauties of our country. We, the Turks, are cold-blooded. We are late sometimes, but then we hurry up, start running when the time is ripe and even past, and we start running, trying to catch the train, so to speak. That's what we are doing in almost in every field. So, speaking of environment, speaking of renewable energies, we are taking critical steps, important steps. In the last 13 years, for example, we have increased our total forests by 1.5 million hectares. Between 2003 and 2015, again, our forested and rehabilitated forest areas have reached 4 million hectares, 3 million saplings have been planted, 330 saplings are produced every year on the average, 14 million of which are distributed free of charge. And regarding forest fires, I must say that we are doing well. In 2003, 26 billion kilowatt hours was the generated amount of HEPs, and it's been increased significantly in the past decade. About renewable energy, the installed capacity has increased from 11,000 to 31,000 megawatts, which indicates a fast and steady growth between until 2015. 10,590 megawatts of plants have been commissioned, and most of it comes from renewable energy resources. Wind energy has been increased to 4,503 megawatts actually, and you know these figures. I mean the updated figures you know better than I do, I guess. Am I right, General Director? Sun, solar and geothermal are on the rise as well. Until 2030 we are planning to erect 2 nuclear power plants, NPPs, and we are moving on fast in this regard as well. Again, regarding protected areas are on the rise, the amount, the size, irrigable land amount is increased, and we have established a pipeline, laid a pipeline for drinking water to Cyprus, and there are savings, millions of dollars of savings in imports of natural gas. 35% of all municipal population had wastewater treatment plants, access to wastewater treatment plants, which has almost doubled in the last decade. So such examples are abundant. For example, regarding GHG, we are employing serious precautions, measures after the protocols, especially after the Kyoto Protocol. We are taking swift and extended steps to cut down GHG emissions. We are covering considerable ground, and this is worth noting. The emissions in this field, Turkey is doing great. 1/3 of all GHG comes from US globally. 1/3 of GHG again comes from China. Our GHG contribution to GHG is maybe 4 per 1,000, so we're not such a harmful country. I hope such meetings, and especially this event, will be fruitful for us all, will help us and support us in on this path towards a cleaner future. I'd like to thank everyone, the organizers and the ministry and all the bureaucrats, everyone, for being with us. I hope it's going to be fruitful for us all. Have a nice day.
Sayın Vekilimiz normalde dün açılışta bizimle beraber.
Actually, distinguished MP was supposed to be with us yesterday, but actually with the Ministry of Environment and Urbanization couldn't make it, and therefore thank you very much actually for joining us. Now we'll move to the fifth session, and the moderator of the fifth session is our Director General for Renewable Energy, Özcan, and the other speakers, Mehmet Betil, Borusan ENBW Energy Board Member Arif Günyar, General Manager Enercon Turkey Olcay Yiğit, General Manager Vestas Turkey İbrahim Erdem, Enerjisaf Business Development Manager, and Hüseyin Alper Türedim, Turkey Fingers Institute, Head of Department for Surveillance and Inspection, and wish you all a nice session. Thank you. Good morning. So, together with the opening address, now we have arrived to the fifth session, first session of the day, and we'll be speaking about renewable energy source areas in renewable energy and about local manufacturing. We have very distinguished speakers with us. As you all know, renewable energy source areas is something pretty new. With regard to solar energy and bidding, we are actually working hard, and within December, again in solar energy at Koyunyak, Karapınar, we actually have completed, we will be completing our first bidding process for solar power, and again we'll be just trying to finalize it. And in terms of wind, especially this regulation, the bidding under the renewable energy, again source areas, what it means and what are our competencies and capabilities in terms of local manufacturing, whether there's actually any need for this. And in particular, there's actually an annual 1,000 megawatt of wind, installation capacity that we have. And in particular, looking at the report published by the association, this 1,000 megawatt of wind annual, what it corresponds to is actually like an advertisement on nuts, I would say. For example, it is actually, there was a promotion about Turkish nuts, and it is pretty much similar to that 1,000 megawatt of wind, to what extent it would be useful for Turkey. So thank you very much for devising such a report for the executive committee of the association. Also, I'd like to thank to all who contributed to the organization of this Congress, Mustafa, and at the same time the board of directors. Now, I will not take too much of your time. Just as an introductory remarks, I just make such an introduction. On the other side, as you all know, as a country, especially in the recent years, days, there's actually the highlight and emphasis on local manufacturing. Renewable is actually a local source of energy, as a source itself, I mean. But of course, whether it is at the desired level in terms of technology, we don't know it yet. We have a potential at certain places, and we have barriers at some places, and that's what we'll be discussing. It is local and national, and if we can possibly have R&D activities, if we can develop the technology, then the localization should start somewhere there. Of course, also, as the global, of course, players, we have to understand that, I mean, it must be whether we actually can make an economic sense, in a technical sense, in terms of human resources, whether it will make any sense at the global level or not. So our resource is local, and we also would like to make the technology local, and together with the R&D, and so that's the tendency that we have, and I believe that YEKA, the new regulations, also serves that one. And there are some new developments in the wind energy, so I'll leave the floor to them. According to the order in the agenda, I'll be giving the floor to each and every speaker. So I'd like to move to the first, Mehmet Bettel from Borusan ENBW Energy, and also board members to there, and also to the association as well. Born in Istanbul. I'll not give you your age. Graduated from Istanbul Technical University, Department of Electric and Electronics, and served Borusan for a long time, and also chair of the board of directors to several companies. And Mehmet, at the same time, is at the Confederation of the Turkish Employers, again member to the board. So the floor is yours. Okay, then he was actually at the Confederation, not anymore. Distinguished participants, I wish you a nice day, and I hope it would be a useful day for all of us. Distinguished General Director stated in his introduction already, and I just went through my slides, and I just thought that there's no point in actually showing the other slides, because it means that we probably will make use of the time, because you already mentioned many of my slides. As we all know, with the new regulation on the renewable source areas, it's the newly enforced. What is the point in here? Based on renewable energy sources, especially for the plants that are generating electricity, to have the equipment used to either manufacture them locally or supply them locally, and to ensure for technology transfer. Now, I'm just going through the other speakers. We have the equipment manufacturer, major, again, energy company in Turkey, representative of the Turkish Scientific Council, and I'm someone representing the industry, I suppose. So as you can look at the slide, as Borusan R&D it says on the slide. And I'm a person who actually spend a lot of time at the industry, and it's mainly about my comments on the topic. Now, with this new regulation, we as the players in the sector, we're just given some tasks to perform. This localization in terms of local, again, content and R&D, you have to take rapid steps on this. And in doing so, we have to create added value, high added value. We actually must have some final objectives which are sustainable and open to development and competitive, and at the same time targeting export to developed markets and to have a high R&D capability. But of course, in doing so, it is also important to know about the economic and the technical side, and it's very important to have a proper roadmap on the table. And at the same time, there are several already existing investments, and the already existing investments should not be interrupted. This is as important as localization, I should say. Therefore, we actually have to find an answer to some of the questions. First of all, is it, for example, a local brand that we are speaking about, or is it, for example, something that depends on certain projects? Is it just some different cooperation, collaboration, a different form of cooperation that we are speaking about? It is either the joint ventures or the consortiums, because, as you all know, it's actually two different concepts with two different risks. And back to the questions. Thinking about the wind capacity of Turkey being used, whether it makes it economically meaningful or not. For example, with regards to European Union and all, whether it makes some sense, and to do, for example, any development, how about, for example, design capability, material capability, do we have it? For R&D, at which level we are in terms of testing and measurement? Or especially assume that you start from scratch as the industry. Is it, for example, research and development, or is it, for example, production and development? And at the same time, do we have highly qualified suppliers? And the other thing is that, especially for the foreign investors, what is the situation of the foreign investors, and what are their sense, and whether it will affect the target or not? And I'll try to give an answer to this question. In speaking about whether we should become a brand or not, we have to start with the market itself. First of all, the investments are considered for a strong domestic market. Looking at the evolution of the markets, the world, Europe, and also the countries in the region, you have to check for such markets. And looking at the evolution in general, and I'm just showing you the trend. Starting with 2010, around 30% of an increase, especially because it's reduced down to 16% in the last 4 years. These are the international references, as you can see. And to the European Union, especially the speed increase in the new investments, again, between 2014 and 2015, it reduces down to 9%. And what we have to pay attention to is in 2015, it was 12,800 megawatts of new capacity. And I think it is 9,800 megawatts onshore, 3,000 offshore. In other words, 76%, on the other side, 24%. And comparing 2014 and 15, the share of offshore almost doubled. Therefore, in the European Union, there is actually a trend towards the offshore, and it's an ongoing trend. Now, looking at the Turkish market, again, that's the trend you can see. Of course, especially I've followed it with the official figures. That's by the end of 2015, it is 5,300 megawatts. We know it already discussed by the previous speakers, but these are the official finalized figures. So, especially in the last 5 years, we have around 28% of an increase in the new investments, and despite of that fact, especially looking at the official figures, I mean 2023, 2030 and so on, is 1.9 gigawatt that we require so as to catch up with those objective. But it is around 1 gigawatt, and that's the very final performance that we have seen. Again, just going through with the official figures. In Turkey, looking at the wind energy installed capacity targets, it is possible to consider the already installed capacity. It is, for example, 127 WPP installations that we have, and in total 5.1 gigawatt of product generation. We just get close to 5.6 gigawatt, which is the objective for 2050, relatively close. There are 54 power plants already under construction, so it will correspond to 1.5 gigawatt of an installed capacity in addition on the top of this, and 20,000 megawatts, that is the 2023 objective. Again, as I told you, with the official figures, it will be 1.9 gigawatt, so $2.9 billion of an investment required every year. So from this perspective, I would say we actually have to rely on the figures that we have on the table according to the official figures that we have. Now this capacity until 2035, I mean this again 1.9 gigawatts I guess, 532 turbines must be manufactured, and this corresponds to $2.5 billion. And of course in practice I would say it is 1 or 1.2 gigawatt of investments, for example. Initially, it was, rather than the 500 turbines that we initially started, it's like 280 or 270 turbines required to be manufactured. Of course, in the industry, it's important, I mean, that you have to consider the industry, and that's the reason why these are the figures over the years. That's the reason why I provide you with such figures. Looking at the European market, almost 7-fold higher increase than us. Of course, it's an emerging and developing market, but we really have to very well assess the competitiveness of the permanent players in the European market. Again, in total, looking at the market size, EU and Turkey, that is as the target market, it is actually really quite increasing the appetite, and I would say, of course, there are some technological competencies that should be developed, and there are certain challenges, of course, for this, but one thing that we should keep in mind is that in the European Union, the capacity use of the installations already existing in Europe. Because I know it from the industries that I know, we've been just working 3 times 7, I mean 21 hours of a shift. I mean, I think it is 12 or 14 shifts that are being worked. There is actually deficit in capacity, underused. Capacity is underused. Therefore, the foreign investors in particular should do the maths properly, and that's what they are doing actually. And looking at the countries in the region, in Bulgaria, in Greece, in Iran, we actually have an opportunity, but it's limited. And especially, economy of scale is important. And of course, these are attractive maybe figures, but what is important is the increasing trend, and how it is distributed over the years makes sense. For turbine manufacturers, again, As you know, in the weekly bulletin of, again, the association, we already have it. You can see the distribution is superb. I mean, once we have a local content, it actually will be a great gain for everyone. However, looking at the situation today, in terms of market share, we have diversity of players. In terms of the investor of WPP, it actually has a competitive edge. We have to keep this in mind. And therefore, back to the concept of the new regulation for the source areas, especially the local content in the bids before those under permitting and license, and thinking about actual market conditions, I guess we no more will have so much diversity in the players in the market in terms of equipment. I mean, the number of players in the market looks like it will reduce. I mean, it's just like a minute takes all. And as for the position of the foreign investors or the foreign companies, as you can see on the slide today, there is actually a knowledge accumulation and the technology level of the foreign companies in here. Of course, their behaviors are important. That's one thing that we should always keep in mind. And as for the industry itself, on component basis, as you would appreciate, I mean, maybe the production capacity is something different. I mean, the wind turbine, actually, as you all know, has the tower, the blade, and at the same time we have the embedded, embedded software. I'm underlying it that we have. We have 5 different components, and I think you know it pretty well. I think it is 90-95% of the entire cost, I guess. And from that perspective, for these 5 components, the tower and the blades can be locally manufactured. Of course, things are not that much simple. I know it from my colleagues that in a wind turbine there are almost 7,000 components, and this actually is considering again the automotive industry, for example. It means 350 to 400 continuous and 1,000 plus. Again, I mean, you need that much amount of supplier company, and it must be on permanent basis. Now, looking at the Turkish suppliers in terms of the main components, first of all, we can actually see the already existing. Again, for example, Enerkon is the first blade company. Again, Demirel started it. And TPI again for the OEMs is the main again industry. I mean, produce it according to OEM. That's called as a contract manufacturing, and especially in the automotive industry, it's just one of the business models used in the automotive industry. By the way, as a new blade manufacturer will have LM, I guess, 100% foreign investment, as much as I know. The business model will be a bit different than TPI. They will tell the OEMs their own designed blades. Very roughly, I would say in blade manufacturing, almost 1,000 per year unit production that we will reach, and therefore probably it actually will meet the demand for such. And looking at the market with the EU, up to 10,000 that we can get. I mean, there is actually such a market. In terms of the tower, 6 manufacturers that we have, I guess 700 tower unit production that we have. Both actually, they're all open to export, which is something good, I would say. Besides, in the bolt industry again, response to the need of the OEMs. In generator again there are some issues, but I'm sure that it all will continue. If we are speaking about a unique and authentic product, in other words, are we just going to attract foreign investors to Turkey, or are we just going to have a local authentic product? And if we're speaking about such an authentic product, local product, then we have to abide by some rules. That is actually the International Electrotechnical Commission standards should be met in terms of, in particular, testing standards. And especially in the worldwide markets, if we wanted to just move around the worldwide markets, it should meet certain criteria, especially before the design, after the design. I mean, tests should pass. We have to pass the test successfully. That would make any sense. And looking at how it is applied in the country, it is the Middle East Technical University's, again, wind lab for the validation and testing and measurement of the final product. As much as I know, I mean, we need some other centers with international accreditation. For example, we in the automotive industry, again, there's a center accredited, and in 2007, again, Istanbul Technical University, again with different industrial estates, and also by Bursa Exporters Council, again association, again. It's actually turned into a company. Thinking about the wind, for example, I will finish now. You have to wrap up in 2 or 3 minutes because I want to give 15 minutes for each. So, here you can see the development of the automotive industry, and starting with 2010, R&D is understood, as you can see, its strength, I would say. During the 10th development plan, with the vision of 2023, some new steps are taken, and of course development of the suppliers industry in particular to reach to the quality standards, and at the same time maybe these are one of the most important parameters again for R&D activities as well. You know, today automotive is the top export item, and it has a history of 20-30 years for the automotive industry, but whether we've just reached to the desired local content level, I don't know, it is something debatable. The wind turbine again industry, again, it's actually important in terms of the human resources, employment and all. Maybe it is just like the Pullman, the buses in the automotive industry, because 4,800, around that amount of parts component in terms of the number of the suppliers company, it's pretty similar, I would say, size of the suppliers. And there is R&D for the last 20 years, and in the last 6 years it is ranking the top in Europe, and despite that, again, for engine, for transmission, some critical components are still subject to import. I don't know, think about bus manufacturing. I mean, although for the last 20 years we cannot reach the R&D level that we wish for. And think about the transmission system in the tower and the blade and the wind turbines. We have to think twice. The wind turbine industry, if you're asking me, is a young one, and starting around 70s, and there's it's mainly based on assembly installation. We should keep this in mind. I mean, from the eye of an industrialist, that's what I can say. Therefore, the main industry actually, and especially, it is all about time, and optimization of the workforce should be made properly. And the merit is actually having a final product with the combination of all. The other thing is the difference between solar and wind. There's a huge technology difference. We're speaking about dynamic and static loads, and I don't know, I think it actually would be nice. So, I mean, it is, I mean, you should, one size does not fit all. So, I think it's all about, as I told you, time. I mean, these are all about the baby steps that we are taking. There's actually the learning curve, which we should consider. It takes some time. I mean, just like, for example, in sun, I mean, I don't think it will go up that much. I mean, as I told you, just so as to fulfill the R&D capabilities should be considered, and at the same time we have to pretty well identify the position of all the players in the market. So there's a need for a common joint roadmap. Otherwise, while saying I will have local content, then we'll end up with such a position that we cannot even go through the bidding process. And as the conclusions, I would say we have to start somewhere. We have to take a proper sound first step, and we need to identify proper roadmaps. We already have the automotive industry as a role model. We have to draw some conclusions and lessons out of the automotive industry, and we have to identify the steps properly. And therefore, about design and brand making, I actually have two things. The thing to have an authentic brand, there are three things. First, the public should assume responsibility, and the second thing is that so as to facilitate the new regulation, just like the TPI, the business model applied to TPI at the same time should be considered as a milestone. We need a good suppliers industry. And very finally, I would like to say, whether it is R&D or production and development, I think it all requires the suppliers industry. That's the most important thing, because there must be the competitive edge for the suppliers industry. At $9 billion worth of an export by the suppliers industry in the automotive industry. I have a lot more to say, but maybe during the Q&A, if any. I mean, also there's the business model side, but I'm sure our colleagues may also touch upon that. Thank you.
Before moving on with Arif Günyar, I would like to thank Mehmet as one of the pillar persons of this industry, who has given us an analogy between the two sectors of energy and automotive, and he has also touched upon the stress points. Of course, that will always exist, those stress points, but regarding the success he's achieved in terms of pulse and turbines, and together with that the export capabilities that it entails, will reflect on the manufacturing of equipment for wind energy. Production and development, or research and development, those are the issues that he touched upon. He also made a comparison between the EU and Turkey, telling us of our potential, giving us examples from the towers and wind equipment. So we have the basis for local or domestic production. And as I said, the stresses will always happen. Still 280-300 turbines, that's the amount of present production. And maybe we'll be discussing about the question that he's asked, about the abundance of players, or the diversity of players. Are we going to lose it? That's a question he left us with, but still we must focus more on domestic production. And he said that we need it for competitiveness, for wind production in compliance with ISE standards. And I think Alper will be speaking about this from the Turkish Standards Institute. He also talked about the upsides and downsides regarding ancillary sectors, etc. So thank you, Mehmet. Arif Günyar is our next speaker, General Manager of Enercon, a graduate from Essen University, then postgraduate studies, graduate studies in other universities in Germany. He has also studied carried out research in the US about industrial facilities, renewable energy. Since 2007, Arif is working at Enercon, doing a great job. So thank you, General Director. Thank you for this beautiful presentation, and thank you everyone for being here. Thank you TWEC for giving us a chance to address this beautiful audience. I did not prepare a presentation because the technical specifications, etc., about YECA have not been prepared, but when they are prepared, I think TWEC will give us another opportunity to discuss those issues. But we can only, for the time being, speak about our existing concerns or the problems, the challenges that we are facing in this sector, and maybe I can share with you a brief history of what's come to pass until YECA. And as a producer of wind turbines, I can speak about YECA, local industrialization, our requirements, our needs, what we need in the sector. I can talk about those issues. Let me but briefly inform you, very briefly inform you about my company, which played a significant role, a pioneering role in Turkey's industrialization. It's a company established in 1984 in Germany for 45 megawatts of established installed capacity, has come to Turkey at an early stage, established the Aeropal factory together with Demirel, and in 2009 Enercon has erected the first concrete tower plant or factory in Turkey. My company has direct investments in addition to the 4 steel tower investments in Turkey that was mentioned a moment ago. We are supplying from the Turkish industry, and the first tower actually was produced in partnership with our company in Turkey. So I am telling you all this, giving you this brief history, because I want to show you that we have always been a part of local industry. Those steps were taken as early as 2006, 2007, and especially in November 1st applications, there was this bottleneck in the sector. You remember, and then a global financial crisis followed suit, so there was a suspension, a period of suspension, in agricultural terms, a furrow. And the Industry Commission, President of the Industry Commission at the Turkish Parliament, Soner, he gathered us together and asked us what we needed to do, what was needed to be done to enliven this sector. And there was not anything called YECDEM at the time, and there were decisions, adequate decisions taken, which bounced back from the General Assembly, and we asked them what happened, and they told us about this new mechanism, or the need for a new mechanism to enliven the sector, wind sector, the domestic sector, of course. And we defended that idea, we defended the support and reinforce Turkish capacity. In 2011, the new law was passed, and domesticity as a concept was introduced. Once that law was published in the official gazette, we started working with the EIE at the time, Electrical Surveys General Directorate, which was transformed into Renewable Energy General Directorate, and still the debate is ongoing. We worked with these people, we debated and talked with these people, and along the way we worked together, and now we have YECA. Before 2007, the realization rate of the licenses was around maybe 65–66%. After that date, realization rate of granted licenses was even less than 30%. Why is this downfall? Why is this decrease? We must focus on this, we must discuss this, and take the example of the couple of projects that have been commissioned in the last couple of years. The capacity increase has reached significant levels. What I'm trying to say is that the industry expects a market which is sustainable, which is foreseeable. That's what the industry wants, and the industry, that's us. Now we see that this is not happening. In capacity increases, maybe we can push it as much as 1 gigawatts, but all these things are beautiful, and you've done a great job. I'm talking about YEKA. YEKA still is like the first amount of water that you give to a plant when you first stick it in the ground to give it life, to support it. But for 1 gigawatts, no one's gonna come and trust the market and its sustainability and make investments. The industry flourishes if there is trust there. I mean, industry will follow unless there is the capacity. YEKA, we need it, yes, but YEKA is the breath of life, or the first spark. It is needed, of course, but it is needed for us to stand up on our feet, but after that it won't help us survive. We need other things for surviving projects to increase 20% to 90%. We need open ideas. I mean, realization rate 20%, that is so low, so basic, and we discussed about these issues in many discussions yesterday in both halls. We must find the problem and solve it so as to make this running, a functioning market. Once that market is in place and the basics of such a market is in place, investors will follow suit and consider making investments more seriously. You can see this in the history. The PEL, or the Wing factory, was established in 2002. Renewable energy law was ratified in 2005. I mean, in 2002 everything was so new and nobody knew about wind in 2002, and the renewable energy general director didn't even exist, and we at the time have established this factory, Wing factory, or rotor factory. What triggered it? What triggered it? Where did that first spark came from? Maybe from Daimler LVI participants. And the tender was about 300-400 megawatts, which was just the motivation, and then it was cancelled. But the factory still stands in Izmir. At the time, what I'm trying to say, 300-400 megawatts was enough to bring in investment for Wing factories. But as a manufacturer, I can say VAT, local VAT, comes from the Wings, because that is where you have handcrafts, that is where you have the highest level of employment. Why do we force ourselves to do this here at the local level? Because this part is so big, which leads to significant forwarding costs or transportation costs. If not YEKA or YEKDEM, still this brings down costs, and it is a motivation for us. It's a win-win situation, together with when you add up local contribution. And when I look at the existing YEKA specifications or the regulation, I have a couple of things to say. When we are speaking about YEKA, we are speaking about production, we are speaking about manufacturing. We are talking about local products which will be used in the realization of projects. So there's a couple of business branches there: project development, manufacturing, project realization. And when you look at the draft contract or draft specifications, you can see that collaboration is needed right at this point. And I think, this is my personal view, I think this is not so right, this system. I think a consortium would be more reasonable, more logical. I mean, we know about manufacturing, let's focus on manufacturing, let's focus on what to supply from ancillary industries, and project experts, leave the project design to project experts. That's the kind of consortium I think we need, and then they let them decide how to go on, how to continue, or how to stop partnership. I mean, that's nothing which relates to us. And of course there's a third branch, financing. We must not also forget about this. And speaking of manufacturing, speaking about production, we are talking about local manufacturing mechanisms or local contributions, and that mechanism functions. For example, we have 4 equipment pieces: wings, power electronics, other equipment, and the tower and the PAL in wind turbines, for example. I mean, these are the 4 pillars of wind sector, wind projects. The 4th part requires actually does not require certification, which requires also an amended regulation if we are to manufacture those equipment. I mean, there are no tangible equipment, and it says others. What's others? Other equipment? That's a big question mark. On the other hand, since 2002, after 2002, 2007, 2008, what should be the amount of local participation? Glass, fiber, bolts, can we manufacture them or can we not manufacture them? We must clarify this. And the free market conditions, the manufacturers are living in these conditions, and things find their own way. Actually, there's nothing to resist. Everybody finds their own way, and if you push it somehow, try to impose your will on this, it might disrupt the independent flow, so to speak, of the sector, of the industry. So you must sometimes allow things to happen, and that's what my personal experience is about, on the basis of which I wish to say our clients have been availing themselves of this local contribution, and each and every year there are new ideas within regulations, within the legislation, and each and every year at the same facility, the same product, the same procedures and everything, I have to change them, amend them, start from scratch, and prove that what I produce is local. We have someone among us from the Turkish Standards Institute, and once you have the TSE or the TSI involved, and we have a problem with timing. A law comes, a regulation, new regulation comes, and they say it is retrospectively active and effective immediately, and this is problematic for us. We have talked about this, discussed these problems yesterday from the manufacturer's side. We call it foreseeability or predictability and retroactiveness of the regulations. These are the 2 critical problems, challenges that we have. When I bow my head and start thinking about this, about what we have available, we have all this equipment that we have produced or have been producing for many years now, the equipment which are local, and we are having difficulties proving that they are local products. And I think I wish to address this question to you before all the participants. Distinguished General Director, when you have all this experience and you're looking for more domesticity, more locality in our produce and our products, we are having great challenges for marketing them. What's going to happen after YEKA? We have all this know-how which is critical, because for my company, for the world, 45% of this market is patented, and we are concerned not to lose this. That's not why we are not competing with China, for example. Speaking of R&D, and I still fail to understand what we are talking about in terms of R&D. It's going to be P&D or R&D? That was the question in the previous speech, and there is nothing you can impose or I mean, are you going to leave brains be, let them soar freely, so to speak? Because that's what you need for R&D, and I want to question this. I want to question this, and maybe participants have a lot more ideas to share on this issue, but I think rules should not be dictated in this regard. Yes, I'm wrapping up. And well, you already have asked the question, and it's a colorful presentation, colorful address. I don't want to cut it, but anyway, let's take a look at the industrialized companies, US, Germany, Spain, etc., and the installed capacities in these countries. What has happened in these countries, and how did they evolve into today's levels of industrialization? What were the megawatts, gigawatts that they were speaking about? So what I'm saying is that let's just consider their experiences. I am, of course, for the idea to support locality. YEKA is a beautiful proposal. Unless it's designed well. And we will have ample time to discuss YEKA. And the correct licensing mechanism might be a more powerful invitation for foreign investors. If you could give them some carrots, some thresholds, so many megawatts with foreign production, and the higher the megawatts, higher the amount of locality, and this might be included somehow in capacity increases. So we have this system already available, developed, and we have a lot of projects designed, and instead of triggering spark, we will have a sustainable market, and the free market conditions will settle themselves in time, because everybody will work in that direction. Thank you, General Director.
Ben biraz gazına gelmiş gibi hissediyorum.
I think it's rather than being a moderator, it would be much better for me to sit in the middle, I guess. Now, I actually have to elaborate a bit more on this. First of all, Arif is actually, as a player in the market, he mentioned about his expectations, and he based it on sustainability. One thing is about predictability. We want a predictable and sustainable market, not only for wind or not only for example, renewables. It's actually an inevitable factor for any market. There's no discussion about it, I guess. And we, in particular, as the public side, also we are just trying to make sure that there's predictability. And therefore, as for the wind, I would say, rather than not being so predictable, you have to be able to see 2030 clearly, 2050 clearly. We just need to have a market structure that actually is so. And in particular, just looking at the bigger, larger picture, I would say, and for the sustainability, turbine manufacturing, about local content, or having, for example, different production disciplines together, or having the production discipline together with the investment discipline. Whether consortiums will be allowed or not. As of 2015, the installed capacity in renewable energy, the installed capacity that is commissioned in renewables is more than the conventional fossil fueled power plant. 1 out of 2 megawatts is on renewable energy in the world. I was in Abu Dhabi, IRENA, and the director of IRENA said the World Energy Congress Istanbul was a milestone for us, because in the previous World Energy Congresses, renewable energy was actually a side event. Let's also touch upon renewable energy, just like the futuristic thing that we should not ignore it. And in Istanbul, in the World Energy Congress, renewable energy was one of the main themes. Therefore, renewable energy is actually had an impetus now, and we have a change in the context. We're no more having the discussions of a decade ago, and it's all about change, but a fast change. And we actually have to catch up with this fast change, have to do it with a good planning, and also it should be sustainable. Therefore, the speakers, and of course with the contribution of the others as well, your again contribution to the discussion is very important. Why we are having this new bidding procedure, especially for this renewable energy source areas, it does not actually stop the already existing investments. We have both licensed and non-licensed. We have again the first Bosphorus bridge and then the second Bosphorus bridge, and we also have now a third Bosphorus again a bridge that is also a renewable energy source area, and we just consider this as an important contributor. Why? Because there is actually huge competition in the world, and between 2015 and 2025, in the upcoming 10 years, there is 59% of a reduction in solar energy. It will be 27 to 30% of a cost reduction in wind. So investment costs are decreasing at one side, and the capacity and the efficiency is increasing. So it's a global issue. And therefore, that's what we aim with the new regulation for the multinational companies and those with the technology, also to come to Turkey to have an investment competency in Turkey, and at the same time try to make their own costs more efficient, both in the Turkish market and in the market of the region. It may vary depending on which region, depending on one corporation to the other. I mean, we're not trying to create any monopoly in here. And I feel like there is such a concern, but this is wrong. You should not have any such concern. So it is solar and the wind. These two things are those that we'll be focusing on. In Tower and Blade, we will reach to a certain success, and in Anchorage and in Bolt, whichever area, because we reached to a level of success there. So what we should do for the others, I mean, how we can further develop our, again, suppliers industry, and how we can possibly make everything more effective. And in doing so, as we did it in the solar, we'll just come together with you. In nacelle, for example, how the local content will be in generator. What should I do now? Today, I don't know, you know it. Today, as for the wind energy to further develop, again, all the sustainability issue, planning competency, or again, having the processes not 29%, and so these are all our homeworks. And of course, with the local manufacturing competency that we have, that's what we aim with the new regulation, YEKA regulation. So it allows for many. It allows for both consortiums and the joint ventures. We did not mention anything like this in the regulation. It will be specified in the specifications, and each bidding actually has its own peculiarities, and it is unique. And it is again the turbine technology. And it is 3.5 megawatts, and especially it's a bit different at offshore and also at onshore. Therefore, it is not the concerns, not the worries, but I just wanted to make such a clarification. But of course, you are right in your concerns. But there's an opportunity in here. Therefore, as looking at the renewable, the trend of the renewable, we have again 12% European Union, 9% India, and the fifth is the Turkey in terms of renewable energy, in solar, in wind. I mean, is not yet at the level of Portugal, Spain, and in particular, the technology is also changing. And it is energy storage, assuming that it will be coming in 2 to 3 years. Then renewables, in terms of Turkey, I believe, we are over 30% in production. So we should not be discussing all these things. Therefore, the new regulation on the top of the economy, what is actually the local content, whether it will be beneficial for Turkey or not. And we're speaking about liberal markets in here, so there's no point in having some concerns whether rather than having multi-players we will just move towards a single player or not. So I guess the people in the audience and those who are not among the audience should decide for this. I'm sorry. You asked a question, that's why I actually make a presentation almost. Sorry for that. Thank you, Arif, for you. And now we have another distinguished speaker. And as I told you, Mustafa, I'm sure we, of course, will also make it more efficient with questions, but Olcay Tayuit, the General Manager of Vestas, graduated from Bosphorus University, and also again, graduate, and also from Marmara University, postgraduate degree, and worked at GE previously, and started working in Vestas in 2009, and since 2012 the General Manager. The floor is yours. Thank you. Distinguished participants, with my best wishes to all of you. You're right, actually, Arif. You're right that we actually have so many problems, but I'll not repeat what you mentioned because we all have common problems. And everyone knows about our problems, about the already existing situation. Of course, we just look at the already existing opportunities at one side, and on the other side we have to find some ways to offer some good solutions for these problems. Now, from where Arif left, I would continue. There are so many countries who did it. Why not looking at those countries and trying to design a roadmap of our own? And before this conference, who did what? I think 3 countries would actually be nice to consider. And if you allow me, I will go through them one by one, and then I'll make my own comments. First of all, these are not the comments of the marketing department. And for those people who worked actually on that country, I mean, I talked to the people who actually worked in that country, and I actually took them as the basis, their experiences. The consultants always, for example, define something so well, but they never take it. So these are those who actually suffered from the pain there. Spain reached so high megawatts, and also very developed wind industry. Looking at the 4 main factors in Spain, there is actually no requirement as a local content policy. First thing, as discussed by the previous speakers and the chair, long-term, stable and certain policies. And of course, especially for the baby steps to grow, there is the need for some support mechanisms, and the other thing is, of course, close collaboration with the grid operator. Why? Because starting with 30%, you can go up to 70% of a wind integration. A system that can make this possible is a system difficult to manage. In the report of the association, also with regards to transmission, with regards to Spain, you can find some detailed information, and 100% of wind integration, how they succeed in doing that. I mean, there are certain detailed information that we have in the report. So, I don't know if you could see it properly or not, but especially for local content, maybe it is the size of the domestic market that defines the local content level. Together with the domestic market, as you would appreciate, it actually leads to employment opportunities and so many manufacturers. And I'm not speaking about the turbine manufacturers in here. And the turbine manufacturers, as Mehmet stated, it's just like a big assembly plant, but very critical assembly plants. And these are actually encouraged investments. Why? Because it attracts also the entire supply chain and the suppliers industry. It's such like a domino effect, an avalanche effect. And if initially you actually cannot have that assembly industry altogether, then it's not likely for the other investments to arrive. So you have to start from somewhere. But especially together with the entire suppliers industry, I mean, not possible to have an assembly from very scratch. Interestingly, in Spain, there's actually there's no national local content prerequisite, but there are some local supports, incentives, especially the Basque area. They provide a lot of incentives for investments, and therefore they provide for quite a good local content there. One other thing is that looking at employment opportunities, for example, maybe half of them are coming from the generation and half coming from the design of the project, transport, handling, crane, and all that. And looking at 2011 and 2012, I mean, in the market, employment at the same time goes down immediately. Now, it is just 1 year that the industry can tolerate something. So again, it's all about sustainability. You can build a perfect structure, but if it fails 1 or 2 years, then it is possible to lose everything that is just gained with challenges immediately. Second country, Denmark, and also the homeland of Vestas. That's why I want to mention. In Denmark, actually, the oil crisis triggered introduction of renewable energy in Denmark. The 1973 crisis, for example, also in Denmark, that was the case. In 1976, they passed a law to support R&D and the investments. And in 1979, we started the production of commercial manufacturing for the wind turbines. And of course, the development of the industry was together with the wind sector. And again, there was no requirement for any local content. It's all about, they follow the world. I mean, they are very parallel to the developments in the worldwide markets. At one side, R&D and also some production support also given. Also, it's all about the long-term policies, how critical they are. In 1984, we exported the first turbine to Turkey, and Turkey was the 7th country. In 2016, the 77th country. As you can see, quite liberal market. Third country, Brazil. It's actually a debatable one, I would say, but maybe similar to Turkey because it is newer. Spain, 20, Denmark, 40 years of a history, but Brazil had a history of 6 or 7 years. And also as for bidding-based auction. I mean, how auction is actually successful. It's actually a market shown to be so. And when I put the slide, they created competitiveness and they succeeded in reducing the cost, but at the point of local content, once they bring some strict local content requirements, the price start to go up because everything has a cost. Because it is not possible to get everything. And another thing is that it's actually all about low costs at the during the bidding procedure. That's right. I mean, you actually end up with quite a high number. But on page 121 of the report of the association, with a capacity factor of 33 and in Turkey, and 50% capacity factor failed. And you just make the comparison. Brazil at the same time actually is pretty similar. Why? Because most is 55% of a capacity factor in average that we have. And once this is the case, maybe that's an unfair comparison. We're not comparing apples and apples. And how Brazil succeeded in doing that? How they attracted that much investment, 2 gigawatt per year of an average again market, and it's domestic market again that is the triggering factor. And the other thing about Brazil is that this local content to support that initiative, they also provide a lot of finance. Brazil, for example, the National Development Bank provided so much finance. For example, think about 18% of a commercial credit to be given by, again, Brazil. In Brazil, they 10 to 12% that they provided for the lending rates, but provided that the local content is the case. So far, this finance side was not discussed a lot, or even if it was discussed, maybe I missed it, I don't know, but in Turkey, looking at in general the projects, maybe only 10% actually is from different sources like Asian Development Bank or multilateral, for example, World Bank, IFC, and maybe there are some syndication, again, loans that are used for this, but 90% mainly from the export credit agencies. Such financing models that they continue by 90%, so it's cheap money, cheaper financing, we can say, in a way. So at one side we wish for local content, but on the other side, the more that we have the local content, then we lose this cheap financing, and therefore at this point in time, if we cannot have a good solution, then we will end up with a local made product that you cannot actually do anything about it. As an example, I would say today it's okay, we manufacture towers and blades, but once the local support is removed, I have no doubt that all investors will ask for import tower and blade. And because there's no such structure that will compensate for this financing. We're saying more local content, but there's again a 50% of a threshold. Especially the foreign countries, again the Exim banks, and according to the OECD conventions, you actually need minimum 50%. And once you go over that threshold, at the side of export credit, you can get 0. So that's actually a huge risk, I guess. Therefore, the model by Brazil is pretty good. I mean, if you would like to push localization, then at the same time you have to address to the finance side. But here there is a risk. When you try to drive so fast, then industry will not complete that development, and therefore you will be subject to the domestic market only. And this year, the delay in the bidding, for example, put the supply chain in Brazil in crisis. So the domestic market actually stops, and that's the case also for the suppliers. Why? I mean, they're not at any point to do exporting here. And it is actually only with Brazil. And I guess that we all will be just moving towards that, because mainly it's the industry, and it is actually an anchorage, the domestic market, of course, but we also need some export markets as well. But once we cannot be competitive, then at the same time there's actually no way out, I guess, for this. Another point is that looking at the countries in the region, these are all developing markets. For example, Western Europe, it's a shrinking one. You can, of course, export there, but what is emerging is Africa, Middle East. Especially in many of these markets, there's the need for getting credit. For example, if you would like to export the products produced here in Turkey, then the export credit side should be addressed as well. For example, if a Turkish EXIM support cannot be provided, then again it would be very difficult to get into these markets. Just to wrap up, size is important for local content, and I guess the new regulation, the YECA regulation, provides for this, which is good. Secondly, this local content rate is an obstacle. Why? Because if this local content level is just made so high, and if it is away from being feasible, then we actually, it will be a problem. I mean, then the plane will actually be on the track. And today, if we're just going to a structure that is only focusing on a local made product, it's actually something so much like trying to, for example, give the position of a very high skill to a novice. And a third thing is financing. In this roadmap, the financing side should be addressed properly, both as for the projects that will be domestically making and in terms of financing there, and also in terms of export. Again, all these products that are produced while they're exported to the surrounding markets, how we will support it. Thank you.
Biz de Olcay Tuba'ya
Thank you, Olcay. You have given us examples from 3 countries about sustainability, support mechanisms, and the capacity of the integration with the capacity of the transmission operator, and frequency and voltage control is a breakthrough solution or a development in this regard, and storage capacities and systems, of course, was one of the main titles, and is going to be so. You also talked about supply chain, and differently from other speakers, you have also touched on issues pertaining to finances and export potential. And when we are speaking about YECA, just like all 3 speakers, I mean the previous 2 speakers, you have also said that you don't have any question marks in your mind, but still you are saying you have concerns or stresses as to the practices or implementation of YECA, but the sector will bring about its best practices, and those will be the determinants, and the details of the specification document will be prepared by everyone. We will do it, and P&D or R&D, we will try to handle them all together with YECA, trying our best so as not to reverse the ground we have covered already, and with an eye on, of course, the local developments and global changes. it is going to be a meaningful work unless we consider these issues. Innovation is much needed in the business model, and the need for localization and domestic production, or the gaps, the shortcomings, should be overcome with the innovations that will be made. So all three speeches so far were critical in terms of laying before us the dimensions of such a need. We are lagging behind our time, so I wish to move on fast with our next speaker, Mr. İbrahim Erdem, Business Development Manager at Enerjisa. I would like to move on with him, who graduated from Mechanical Engineering Department of Boğaziçi, went to a master's program in US in the same field, an executive MBA graduate program he completed before his PhD, which is ongoing. He's been working in this company in Enerjisa at different offices, but mostly in offices regarding strategy development since 2006, and for the last 12 years he's been working in this field in Turkey as well as abroad. So, İbrahim, thank you. General Director, thank you. First of all, I'd like to wish everyone a good day, and we are talking about YEKA, and there is a great interest on this issue. You can see, looking at the audience, people want to know, people are curious about this and interested about this. I think this interest will increase. This curiosity will evolve into enthusiasm, an enthusiastic interest in issues pertaining to YEKA after the specifications are issued. We started off quite nicely speaking about wind industry, the turbines, and we linked that to the automotive sector. There's this correlation or analogy or link, if you like. I'm not going to talk about the details of that, but I have 2 years of white appliances experience before this sector, and in that area the evolution is quite similar to the evolution of automotives. Regarding white appliances, Arçelik has, in partnership with Siemens, the number of the first washing machines that we produced in Turkey was Simco. They were called the Walking washing machines because those first products were patented and produced in Turkey with Turkish know-how, without any foreign input apart from the licensing rights or patents. And those first steps have today been translated into Turkey being the biggest white appliances exporter of Europe. And what I experienced there in, I think it was 2005-2016, Arçelik for the first time developed and produced its own drying machine. In early or maybe late 1990s we started seeing drying machines in Europe, but it was so expensive, so energy consuming, and thanks to many years of know-how and experience, Arçelik now is capable of producing and selling most cost-efficient white appliances, including drying machines, washing machines, and it has taken many years, such an evolution. There is this serious market, significant market, similar to the automotive market, and you're speaking about some 7,000 components in automotive, and you have hundreds of other components in white appliances, maybe less, but still. Development of new products takes years and years, and on the wind side I think this experience is acquired faster thanks to good and best practices elsewhere. I would like to share with you other country examples, and Brazil is the shared example, by the way, but I'll be speaking about from a different perspective about Brazil. And Irana has a beautiful guide about renewables, industrialization, renewable industrialization 101, you can call this 101, renewable 101. And Iran has these practices in this document, what it has done, how it has worked things out, etc. You can find it in this publication. I'll be talking about. And there's another thing about a slide about Algeria, actually. Not Algeria, about Morocco. And the project in Morocco, 850 megawatts project. What does it cover? What is the scope? Is it an example? Can it be an example for us? Then that's going to be the final issue I'll be touching upon. Turkey, as we all know, is this graph on the screen for the last maybe 5-6 years. Starting early 2010, we are seeing this increase from 1.3, 1.7 gigawatts to 5.3 gigawatts, growing almost 5% and making certain installations every year, thanks to the incentives, of course. And this is the picture we get now in terms of towers, in terms of blades. You have these manufacturers manufacturing, producing in Turkey. This corresponds to 6 years. And it's not good to compare this with other countries, but this entire process has brought to YEKA, because policy makers have been working, collaborating with us, and the improvements and the ground covered is not considered to be sufficient by the policymakers, who also believe that we could have taken swifter steps, faster steps, and longer steps in the industry. This is considered like first life-giving spark, which will enable industry to come up with its own solutions. So that's how YEKA evolved and came into being, and main objective being developing local industry, increasing local manufacturing capabilities and local content. This is the basic target of YEKA. So at this stage, it's not only us who can think of such things. There's a lot of other countries who act similarly, and each of those countries are our competitors. Iran in our region, Morocco, Saudi Arabia in the Arabian Peninsula, in other regions of the world you have Brazil, South Africa, Russia, and many other countries are our competitors in terms of industrialization and attracting investments. And these countries, each one of those countries, are pursuing different systems, different road maps, and developing different mechanisms. It's going to be an academic process if you want to take a look into the details of these processes, but I was sharing with you 3 examples, country examples, one of them China. Are we on par with China? Of course not, but still we can compare and contrast ourselves. In comparative sciences you have 2 extreme, the lowest and highest examples to compare yourself with, to locate yourself in between. Well, speaking streetwise, China is the king. I mean, the installations, the numbers and figures are so great. South Africa, on the other hand, is a couple of steps back, a couple of steps behind us regarding installed capacities, etc. But they are so eager, enthusiastic about renewables, not only solar and wind, and also other fields as well. Then you have the apartheid regime, the social collapse there, that they are trying to translate into social development, and they are pursuing different objectives in renewables. Then we have Brazil, like Turkey is developed in the last 5-6 years, but Brazil pursues a more aggressive methodology than Turkey. So we have these 3 countries, but before moving on with what these countries do, what does Iran 101 say? It says, first of all, check your demand. That's the yellow quarter. Check your choice of the auction volume and the way it is shared between different technologies and the project sizes. Then you have the green quarter of qualification requirements. which sets minimum requirements for future participants in the auction. Then you have the selection process of winners, which defines how the supply curve information is collected and based on what criteria. And then you have investors' liabilities, where specific rules to ensure high implementation rate of awarded projects are set. Without localization, you cannot proceed only with capacity allocations. That would be something different. And IRANA talks about how to develop a renewable roadmap. You have 4 goals to consider. What's the size, or 4 questions you need to answer. What's the size of the potential wind energy market? What are the economic opportunities leading to job creation and economic growth? What's your model going to be like? You have to answer this question as well. Then comes the question which is related to employment and labor force. You have to answer this question: what's the optimum level of localization? And then you have to give answer to another question, yet another question, which is what interventions and support mechanisms are available to ensure that optimum level of localization. So these questions are asked in IRENA to those countries covered, and the answers are elaborated, of course. Once these questions are answered, there are 5 areas of work which will be carried out. You can see them on the screen. One of them is about wind energy market profiling and sustainability assessment, focusing on the OEMs, developers, and ancillary industries. That's the kind of profiling and a sustainability assessment. The second study is about wind energy industry and the profiling of the value chain, where the value chains will be evaluated. And about the localization comes the third step to be taken, making an investigation and inventory of the localization potential. Then comes the issue of finances and certification, and then localization itself. After these considerations, let's take a look at the 3 countries. What kind of roadmaps have they designed, have they developed, and did they pursue those roadmaps? Actually, I'm not going to give you the answers of these questions. You will be able to draw your own conclusions from this. Well, this is the last 5 minutes. I know you have a lot to say, but that's why I'm alarming you. 5 minutes. Last 5 minutes. Brazil has blossomed, or this industry has blossomed in Brazil in the last 6-7 years. 3.5 gigawatts of installations have taken place, and Brazil envisages 2.5 megawatts each year of installations. What kind of a support mechanism, or incentive mechanism, does Brazil have? Brazil has a support duration of 20 years. In other countries, we see at least 18 to 20 years minimum in developing countries. In developed countries, purchase guarantee extends even further into the future. And as Olcay has said, there is no mandate of localization, but use of local products, domestic products, achieves considerable financial support. Localization is extended over 4 years in Brazil. The initial step focuses on the 4 main components, and there are requirements, it says, and which have to be fulfilled for 3 out of 4 turbine parts. I mean, you have the tower in place, for example, you export that, and then if you have the steel for the tower domestically, then if that amounts up to some 70%, this is enough. It extends over 4 years, and the amount of local production or local components used increases through time. And this is what Olcay has mentioned about locality, increased amount of locality. This is the year that it started increasing, the price changes you can see, and the only thing I wish to signal here is the allocated installed capacity. Each and every year in the past and into the future, capacity allocation is about 2.5 to 4 gigawatts, which is a beautiful nesting place or a hatching ground for development of investments. Benefits of Brazilian IECA scheme, you can see it on the screen. Wind capacity added, total installed capacity, number of turbines established, people employed, and the electricity demand covered by wind power. You can see it all on the screen. You can see factories. For example, Gamesa opened its first nacelle factory, etc. in Brazil. Similar developments have taken place in, say, South Africa as well. Allocated capacities are low. The total of 2 gigawatts are being allocated for renewables. Wind started at lesser amounts, increasing up to 1.5 gigawatts. But South Africa pursues a different roadmap. Localization for South Africa is not only domestic procurement, they also need domestic development. So you can see the criteria. Support duration is 20 years, sealed bids, etc. And that's how they consider applications and proposals, price proposals, and they grant the project to the company which they believe will bring in the greatest benefit. These are the details of localization. Could you please wrap up, by the way? And finally, we have to say about the prices in South Africa. The cost of localization in South Africa, I mean, you have capacity allocations plus other specifications, maybe, I don't know, but there are certain reasons behind it, and it is incomparable with Turkey prices, for example. They are so high, so high. Localization and employment in South Africa, well, South African target was a minimum of 25 and a maximum of 75% of domestic component use or localization over 4 years, and localization is ensured by some 45%. And the final example is Chinese market, the Chinese market, which is an extraordinary country, and they have 1,500 gigawatts of renewable energy installed capacity, most of which comes from wind, and each and every year for the last couple of years 20 to 30 gigawatts of installed capacities added up. How China succeeded in doing so? What has it done actually to ensure this? First, localization process in China took place in mid and late 90s. They attracted foreign investors, they mandated partnerships with local partners, and in 2000s, early 2000s, they have turned away from this, regardless of foreign or domestic investments. As long as production is local, they have been making allocations of installed capacities which brought the local content requirement up to 70%, around 70%. In China, let's not stick to numbers. This is the picture you get. No foreign manufacturers you have, because they became uncompetitive. Well, you are in -2 minutes. I mean, actually, this is my last slide, the one before the last slide. Excuse me for delaying you. But anyway, 25-30 gigawatts of allocated capacities, which is 25 times the allocation of capacity of Turkey. China is the unique example that ensured with such allocations in the world. And these are the details of the Moroccan scheme. You can see the levelized cost of electricity, which shows us, actually, this graph shows us how Morocco managed to pull it as down as 36.4 cents. Speaking of a market which is located in a plain desert area, You have all the bases for the project and the capacity factor you can see, which translates into price differences. And without these factors, you can tell how minimal other factors are, which are incapable of pulling the prices down. That tells us, and we don't have a single 1,000 megawatt in Turkey whatsoever, which also didn't exist in the past. And finally, what are the major takeaways, or what are the major outputs? As a summary, we can see it's not only these three countries, but we have studied a lot of other countries when we were studying about YELKA. Each and every country has its own dynamics, its own perception of localization and strategy of developing local industry. There are basic 5 parameters in this regard: price, localization strategy, economic development requirements for domestic products, social needs, just like we've seen in social South Africa, example, and the qualification approach, which precedes the basic driver, of course, capacity. Capacity is the biggest driver, and everyone tries to optimize this capacity. 25 gigawatts for China, 1,000 megawatts for South Africa, but everyone's trying within the limits of their own capabilities. In Morocco, in Turkey, we actually have a lot of best examples, best practice examples. Maybe we have a higher potential than other countries. We are lagging behind some 48 gigawatts, and we are focusing on 15 gigawatts of that. We are hoping to work it out optimally, and I'm sorry for the delay.
Evet, ben
I'd like to move to Zeyn Alpertredi, and from the Turkish Standards Institute, and head of the Center for Surveillance and Inspection. From Black Sea Technical University, mechanical engineer, again in Department of Economics, at postgraduate in business management, and still having PhD study. And also the source, again, engineering, again, diploma from METÜ. And again, now working at the Turkish Standards Institute, in particular about product certification and personal certification, planning and committees, and automotive, again, center certification, he's the director. And also in logistics and transport, again, in the certification center, again working as the head investigator, and for surveillance and inspection working as the head of the center. So your point, I guess, is important, in particular in terms of exportability is mentioned, or the ICC standards, which we mean is that at one side it's important to actually have a competitive edge, and on the other hand, as for the prices to be reduced, it's important. And as you all know, YELKA, the new regulation, provides some opportunities, but there is one important thing, which is a must. Thank you. Thank you for all participants. And thank you very much for the people at the back side who are standing up. With my best wishes to everyone. The General Director and a Member of the Parliament, and after the presentations also by the speakers, I prepared a lot, but about why I'm here. I think I'm the person to talk least about the industry. It's actually, I'll be speaking mostly about what the standards are. So, since 1954, especially in the field of conformity assessment, we have been active. And as the Turkish Standards Institute, a national institute, specific to the wind energy, Of course, that's a niche area. I mean, wind energy. Maybe I can say a couple of words about, in general, the energy sector, about Turkish Standards Institute, and then I will speak about what we did for within the framework of the regulation in effect and what we can do. Yeah, but it's important to be clear, I guess. Of course, there is actually a pulse of the energy industry in Turkey, but this is something new also for the Turkish Standards Institute. I mean, there are several sub-sectors at the horizontal level, and at the same time we have some vertical relations among different disciplines as well. We've been working on some of the issues and we're getting prepared for some of the disciplines. In terms of the renewable energy source area, now let's start from the beginning. As you all know, in conformity assessment covers so many different disciplines. I mean, as a Turkish Standards Institute, you consider this, but it is actually not only certification. As you all know, in conformity assessment, there are several other organizations that are in charge. And as another unit of Turkish Standards Institute, we actually have a protocol. And I think it's important that we should be more focusing on the procedural assessment. As conformity assessment, just to repeat once again, there are several disciplines. There is 17,065, especially in experiments and testing. I'm sure you know about that standard. We have laboratories. Especially in the field of solar energy, we have accredited labs. In terms of 17,065, it's important. As the center, Surveillance and Inspection Center, what we've been doing, as you know, in the official journal, before it is published in the official journal in June, we just thought what we can do, what we should do. We have already concluded a protocol on this, and together with this protocol, specific in priority to that topic, of course, wind energy, I'm speaking about the compliance certificate. I mean, as a wind energy, by the nature, the essence of the work, it's mostly the Annex 7, that is the type certificate. So we are mostly focusing on their procedural assessment. Where it comes from? Well, I'm telling you these from the context. It is important. I'm sorry. As you know, in the regulation there is the Article 8.1. Of course, we cover all fields of the renewable energy. It's not only specific to WPP. If any, the product certificate at international standards given by the Turkish Standards Institute or as accredited from 17,065, the product certificates given by the other labs. I mean, if there is any standard. If not, the criteria and their assessment by procedure. The certification, the manufacturing, production, the accreditation, again, institution, the scope of accreditation, between the product and the certificate and the production site. And of course it is mostly the local manufacturing that we focus on. And we also have to build some ownership relations. I think by 13th of May that we signed a protocol, and by the end of June we started to work. And since September 30 we have just completed the activities, as you would appreciate. I think I missed some of the things, but we are pretty new as the Turkish Standards Institute. Maybe we've been doing certification for some time, and that's also a new regulation. I mean, as a part of speaking about my own center, I mean, for this industry, we are pretty new. But what we are doing, I mean, also in the overall energy industry, Turkish Standards Institute is pretty new. And within the framework of the TANAP project, as you know, it is the pipes, in particular those produced in China. We perform surveillance and inspection activities. We also have a consortium in China. 30% of the pipes are produced in China and the remaining in Turkey. For 3 shifts, 7/24, we do surveillance and inspection in China. It is also important to mention in this platform that, as I told you previously, also so as to exist in all other forms of the energy sector, and in the upcoming period, of course, we also will be working on the nuclear power plants. And especially for manufacturing approval, we also are present. We've finished our works on that, both in terms of the starting the bidding and all conclusion of the protocols. We, for example, have also a protocol with the Turkish Atomic Energy Agency. As the distinguished member of the Parliament stated during his introductory remarks, again, with regards greenhouse emission measurements, we also have a work. Maybe it's something much more about environmental factors, but it's important. For the last 4 years, and we also have some projects on green airports. And also, as per the regulation in terms of all conformity assessment institutions in Turkey, we actually have the highest number of validation personnel, and we also have the highest capacity, and hopefully will be appointed for that purpose. So these are about the general energy. Would you please sum up? I know you are the last, but so please sum up. It's okay then. What we did specific to it, the Turkish Standards Institute, by the Product Certification Center, it is either the Turkish Standards Institute, TCEN, and the geothermal there from HPP we also had. So 12 certification that we did. At the product certification site we were not there, not much I would say. Maybe it's not so important, but together with the regulation, as of June 24 that we started, I mean, better to say the beginning of July. Of course, the problems in July, we just couldn't do anything. It was just August left. What we did, again, organizations applied to us for 70 installations, and 278 either Annex 6 or 7 conformity assessment certificates that we issue. Of course, we had some problems, and And Mustafa, and as you would appreciate, also they actually hosted us at the DG Renewable Energy and at the association, and we had a lot of meetings, and the biggest problem that we have is about the WPPs, and in terms of what problems we have about their assessment. Why? Because certification itself is problematic, because it is type certification. Goes in our protocol. Of course, we will have some reservations, and informally we have already discussed it at different platforms. Do we have any suggestions? Yes, we have. Also in terms of certification, but repeating once again, it is mostly the procedural assessments that we did. What is important is actually to make assessment without the consideration of any procedures. I don't know, maybe during the Q&A I better discuss this issue. So, I don't want to repeat it, but the number of certificates, okay then, let me just say one thing. I didn't want to say it, but as Turkish Standards Institute, we are not acting like a public agency. I'm sure the General Director would also appreciate this. We had 21 meetings so far with the manufacturers and with the certification organizations, with the DG. I mean, we had 21 meetings so far, and I think all questions are replied. Even there are certain conformity assessment organizations that step into our door saying, how could you object to our certification? But then we briefed them and they said thank you. So we also learn in this process. As for next year, I don't know, maybe for this year, in terms of timing, in terms of being in a rush, of course the nature of the certificates, the organizations, people actually all have different methods of doing business, ways of doing business. Maybe that's the problem, but hopefully we will reach to a consensus. Because we talk to all the stakeholders in the industry. We have one single request for next year, and as you all know, Turkish people always leave everything to the last minute, but as we also discussed it at the last meeting, please apply to us now. Let's start today without any rush. My colleagues are available anytime, and we actually maybe it would be a wrong time, but for example, directors at Muğla for the installation of a WPP, they are on the site now. I mean, informally, of course, we will be a part of this, but wherever you invite us, we'll be there. That's all. Thank you. Maybe during the Q&A that I will elaborate more.
Evet, Arif.
Yes, as Arif also told us about regulations, and the transition periods after regulations have to be prepared well. I mean, and being a Turkish is not, it may not be so good. I mean, taking action at the last minute and calling people back from holiday and stuff. That's how we worked out certain issues. That's how we solved them out. And thank you, Alper, for helping us solve those issues. Are there any other questions? Any other comments? Who have questions? Can we see? I can see 3, 4 hands. So let's okay, let's make it 5. So that's 3 first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how we will zigzag from left to right. Please introduce yours. Actually, tell us who you are addressing the questions. Don't ask me, if possible. before your question, please. Ibrahim Bey, I am asking this to you. In 1998, PayPal had designed its software, and then came Tesla, and then came Powerwall. And it's a quick story. I'm a public relations on the public side. We are carrying out research and studies. So this brought us to Industry 4.0 and energy. In 2002, I was in Germany as a student, and those smart panels I've seen a lot. What's the question? Is there a story that we are going to write as a success story? We're talking about power, which is diminishing, electrical power, of course. Tesla generates electric cars, and they say, I will also help you generate its electricity for this car at home. Soner Anafarta, that's my name. I mean, this question is for Arif and Ibrahim. How about older people? Well, I mean, Freud says he quit imagining and dreaming after the age of 50. Well, anyway, are we going to go in the same direction? Okay, let me respond to this question then. I think it was a quick response, huh? Thank you. We can move on. Thank you for this answer. Please, you just start. Well, that is the story that awaits us, I think, without moving on with wind and solar. I will say something else. I mean, there is room for such success stories in Turkey, especially in the distribution sector, which includes investments carried out through the state, where investments have been suspended, and today privatization brings us on the verge of a groundbreaking era. We have the smart grid, something well, that's not something which is realized to the fullest, but when it is, it includes a lot of things: software, sensors, consumers becoming generators and producers themselves, etc. It is such a great thing, and it's the real deal for Turkey. I believe Turkey should prioritize this issue, then must continue with solar and wind. Does it exist? Does such a chance exist? Yes, we have a green field of rooftops, so to speak, for solar. We have untapped territories in terms of solar, but we must invest in new technology. But you're always talking about solar power, so are we forgetting about wind? No, of course, that's not what I am trying to say, but wind is actually heavy industries. Production of cars, production of heavy machinery is no different than production of wind turbines. We are moving on with the other question, if you don't have anything else to add. I mean, please be watchful all the time. Okay, thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. I have a quick response. We must believe, first, we must believe that together with the public and the private sectors, we have to have a master plan and make it work through strategies, of course, and both parties should work on it. Power storage or energy storage. That train has already started its journey, especially electric engines and local cars, etc. We are hearing things about these, and it is exciting actually. And renewable energy ratio in Portugal is around 70-75%, especially based on wind and other energy resources. I'm talking about Portugal, where people are driving electric cars. So people are moving on with electric cars, and Germany has just announced until 2030 there will be no fossil fuel cars. No cars running on gas, nothing using conventional energy sources. Well, where you procure your energy will become more important. Generating your energy will become more important. There is the issue of Paris, the World Energy Council, and the General Director has just said for the first time there was a renewable energy session. We attended that session and it was exciting for us. conventional energy people are in an environment, living in an environment today where they must consider, and they don't have any other choice, alternative energy resources. When we have our own renewable energy resources and start investing in those areas in Turkey, of course there will be different balances which will come into being. And the main objective is to consume at generation, the point of generation, and to export it and to support other economies within the nation. Yes, we need such a story and a lot of such stories. You know, renewable energy, solar, wind, new success stories are needed, and YEKA is just one of those, a part of one of those. Question 2, the microphone, please. Okay, we are moving towards the left and right. We are going to zigzag. Ömer Faruk Özgül. I will ask about YEKA, and at the TÜREP board, I mean General Director, everyone is a board member, and we have deliberated and discussed this issue at length at the board. And in principle, everybody supports YEKA. People like me support it quite a lot. Industry-based people like Mehmet and Olcayto, they support it, but less than I do. And the late Korkut Özal, who lost his life just yesterday, I worked with him a lot. And he says, if an engineer is speaking and he says, but, forget the portion before but. Speaking about YEKA, and all three friends have started talking about YEKA, and they said but right after that. Automotive and wind sector you have amalgamated or correlated. I don't agree. Automotive industry and its end user or its end product is just a driver or a car, and the end product is not turbine, it's electricity in wind. That's why I don't agree. You are only speaking about the engine section of your automotive plant, and the end product is not turbines, and the engines still are important. The engine components are imported into our automotive sector, and for many years, until our automotive sector developed, we had to drive bad cars without any right rear view mirrors, etc. I prepared before this meeting. I have scanned through your public activity reports where you are giving information about Vestas, Nordex and GE and their net profits. Net profits, hundreds and hundreds of millions. I mean, Anglo-Saxon turbine producers are making great profits, and I think they don't want to come to Turkey and invest. Domestic products are ours, and that's ours, and everybody should use domestic products, and that's the mindset that we are raised with. In TÜREP board, I want to ask this question to you, Arif. What are the articles that you want to be incorporated in the YEKA regulation? First of all, I'd like to thank you for these findings and conclusions that you've drawn. I'd like to respond to them first, because... But please, he was there... Onur was checking his mobile, and I didn't want to finger point him, and without prejudice we are here trying to create a success story. Everybody will have their buts, and however, in this story, Ömer's question is well placed. We have this great work in solar field. We, I think, can do the same thing for solar. Please respond quickly. Well, my answer to domestic production, I don't think we are against domestic production. We are producing since 2002, as I said, and we have not received any supports and incentives from the state. Without any subsidies and incentives, we have done it for ourselves, and we don't consider ourselves, with our almost 800 employees who are Turkish engineers, Turkish technicians, we don't consider ourselves a foreign company against this backdrop. And the final product, yes, we are still debating this. What is the product that we expect to be domestic? Is it the tower, is it the components, or the electricity? If our end product is electricity, and if we expect electricity to be domestic, does that include the plant, the entire plant, and the turbine, the wires, the cables, and the switchyard, and everything? Does domesticity include it? Well, I mean, all these answers are in the specifications, and everything will be debated, all the components, and the ones that are meaningful for the sector will be reflected. Well, there is a misinformation here, some lacking information. Once you said YEKA, but hence Ömer's question, but still, YEKA, when I say but, it's not because I don't support it or I am called against YEKA. I was trying to indicate how it all started. And since its inception, we've been discussing a lot of issues. We've done a lot. I mean, that's not that we are having hesitations. Well, we will continue discussing these issues. I just want to say this. Ibrahim and Olcayto have made presentations and given examples. Certain countries have certain targets. In South Africa, they have set their strategies, they have set their targets, they have developed certain criteria, some employment criteria, some bring the equipment to the fore more than the other. And today we are talking about YEKA in the Republic of Turkey, and we still don't have a clear, explicit target. We are saying industrialization, and that's not just a simple target. We talked about this at TWEC. What's the target of YEKA? What novelties will it bring to solar and wind power and in other renewable fields? We've discussed this. We discussed also about domesticity. We have representatives from multinationals, a lot of people who join us, who are here with us from other countries. So we are also talking about consortiums. On top of what we have, speeding up what we are already doing, and we are discussing what we need to do in this regard, and YEKA is just a little part of this general answer. I want to move on with the third question, which was on this side. Hello, Nortel. My name is Cem Yalçın. This meeting is interesting, and I have been listening to each and every detail of discussions attentively, and there's this thing about people in this hall. I mean, we have a lot of investors in some sectors, we have a lot of industrialists in some sectors, but do we have anyone solely industrialists? We should talk to them about domestic production and how to pull it off. 1.2 megawatt turbines we will start producing and bring it to the ICCI as a direct drive 60-pole generator UCPS in cooperation with Aselsan. We have the protocol in place and the work is ongoing, and 2017 is the date, is the year when we will launch this, and we are working on this issue for the last 20 years maybe. We have YEKA, production and certification, the three pillars of these discussions. Certification wise, I am the first to apply for certification, because at the time we were producing smaller size turbines, and since then the Turkish Standards Institute is not accredited and has still not completed its prep work. Yes, it's a shortcoming. It's a shortcoming. Alper Bey, I think that's the question for you. Yes, without certification you cannot have any domestic and national produce. How did we get our license? We have done it through the Turkish Lloyd. We have produced 16 binders of, or 19 binders of work files. We submitted that to the Turkish Standards Institute, and I would like to invite Hüseyin to our factory in Tuzla, where we will be producing the 1.2 turbine. You and your team are most welcome. Please come and we will share everything. We are working hand in hand with the Turkish. What's the question? What's the question? I have to be at somewhere else at 1 o'clock, and please. So, Turkish Standards Institute has to carry out its work so fast so that in the first half of 2017 we have made the application, and are we going to get the certification in the first half of 2017? And the second question is to you, sir. YECA fields. Among the YECA fields there is a target you set which equates to $1.5 million and 1,000 megawatts. That's for solar, yes. I mean, solar, wind, whatever. I think it's going to be a similar figure. In terms of scale economy, in terms of big investors, it is a correct decision. We're still talking about domesticity, and there are people like us who are developing domestic and national technologies. What do you think about us? I don't know you. I heard about your company, and there was a talk with your company, and I was at the certification department, and I have talked to their head, and I think you made an application in Istanbul. Please shift that application to Ankara so that we will follow up with that. I think it was 4:30 p.m. we discussed this issue. I will be supervising that process. I don't know you in person, and I am happy to have met you, by the way. And accreditation wise, I assure you there are two sides of the coin. You have two sides of the coin. One of them is inspection and supervision, and on the flip side you have accreditation. It was April that we applied the accreditation to include many fields relating to renewable energy, and it was the 4th month, April, that we made our application. And it's not only us. There is a spark needed in all state mechanisms. Yes, things are lagging behind. If it was up to us, I mean, as long as we pass the tests and we fulfill the criteria, etc., I mean, not in the first half, but in the first month of 2007, we can do it. I think it was end of July when, I think it was, yes, Ramazan was there, and he coordinated, and we met with the TSI, Turkish Standards Institute. Domestic product certifications, product technologies, domestic, everything of those products will be domestic and globally meaningful. That has to be the business model required, and I think the Turkish Standards Institute is doing its homework actively. They have their own dynamics, and they are trying to speed it up, actually. Well, I'm speaking specifically about RE and the energy sector, and there are certain constraints within us as well as within the sector. In my address I couldn't say a lot of things. I had to keep a lot of things aside, but in this response allow me to say we will be present in the energy sector and in all of its inherent fields. You will see the Turkish Standards Institute, if needed, ministries, accreditation bodies, we will push as much as we can to the top of our powers. With the TSI president, I attended a meeting. It was last week, and there's a lot of dimensions. You have TAEK, and we are meeting with them. We are discussing many issues. I mean, I can come and talk to you next week, tomorrow, whatever, anytime, anywhere. Okay, so just keep up the good work and communications about YECA. YECA can be considered as a threat by some, but it's a great opportunity in our way of thinking regarding RE, especially RE in Turkey, to ensure its development, to improve the existing RE schemes in Turkey, to increase it to from 5 gigawatts to 10, 20 gigawatts, 25 gigawatts, especially even further. The sector today is ongoing through a great evolution regarding technology-wise. If not technology, I mean, it's not my neck of the woods, but in terms of capacity, there is a great improvement and evolution. And we are looking forward to speed it up, and we are also looking forward to evolve that into something more domestic. Blades and bolts and everything. Finances, exports, we are examining these issues. We are trying to work out these issues in all the countries that we mentioned. We have carried out study visits there. Our perception is quite different because some information are so detailed. At the GDRE, they have carried out significant work, and the information feedback, data feedback from your side will support us greatly in these works. There are companies that actually we have certain capabilities or competences, and we have to think of it as a bundle, and this is a market, a complete market where producers among themselves are discussing. I mean, you have given examples from blades, from TPIs. This field is a green field, open entirely for innovation. Let's create a success story. Otherwise, I mean, let's write our own story in Turkey instead of reading the stories that are written elsewhere in the Nevada desert. Let's speed up, put it on a smaller gear. Let's speed up and increase visibility, transparency, foreseeability, predictability for sector players. So in this question, well, low domestic producers, that's one of our competences. Final question? Are you moved to another place, or is that no new questions? I'm sorry. I am very sorry, but it's a very short question. Final question? Okay then. The previous question. Goldwind International Turkey, Ayhan Gök, I am the General Director, just taken office. I don't want to steal your time, also. It's the sector's time. Turbine producers, I have a lot of friends who are producing turbines, and I would like to, with my friends, we would like to visit you. Please promise us an appointment. Okay, let's have an appointment. I mean, there's so far no one whom we did not meet. Okay, so just pop up anytime. Okay, we will visit you. We will visit you. So, as a wrap up, one, solar and wind are different. Two, 100% domesticity of the turbines. We have nothing, we have said nothing about this in our meeting in TUREP. What we are saying is that we are building turbines, but are we going to start with the nacelle and auto tower, whatever? I mean, in the meeting in July, you are saying we cannot move on with joint ventures. So we are leaving the door open for consortia for InWind. We will work it out together. We will work together. All the countries serve as an example to us. But experiences matter, of course. We will be criticizing ourselves. We will be looking for answers ourselves and doing our homeworks. We have 1,000 megawatts of wind in 3 or 4 localities, and TEAŞ, the transmission companies, completed its work. They'll be submitting the final products in October, I think, and in January you'll be visiting us, you'll be forwarding your questions to us, you'll be directing us, steering us in certain directions. We are planning to skip a couple of steps, jump a couple of steps in each step, because I think we are offering this great opportunity for multinationals in the region, and in terms of predictability, we are moving forward in that direction as well. Everybody's hopeful, and in January or February, we will have the specifications, and just like the Minister has said, in the first quarter of 2017, we will have completed this work, including our competences, and research tells us 2020 is going to be the year for renewable energy, when it is going to compete with grid prices. So this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for bringing down our energy costs. We talk about embedded softwares, ancillary sectors. I hereby invite everyone, all the sectors, to carry out RDs and PDs, and we have been ordered to do so by the Minister, and we have been given the authority. Now it's the time for last words, without any buts. Olcayto, Ibrahim, nobody? Well, it was great moderation, thank you. It was great moderation, thank you. I would like to thank all the panelists on your behalf, all of them. Their presentations will be reviewed. I made my notes about the questions and concerns, finances, for example, those issues that you have emphasized. We will work on and clarify further. That's homework for us, if you allow us. Let's give an applause, give them a hand to the panelists. Thank you. And thank you for your patience.